Hello, chemistry students. Mr. Utter here again. This is the Mole Lab, and this entire week you have been practicing calculating moles, and this lab will continue to do that. When you open up the lab, you'll see there are three parts here. There's the Mole Lab Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. Each one asks you to do something a little bit different with moles. With part 1, when you open this up, each bag contains close to 1 mole of each substance, and you will see 4 bags. Make sure you understand that the mass of the bag is written down and is not included, and is included in the mass here. So you will need to do a subtraction to figure out what substance is in this bag. If there's 1 mole of a substance here, and you know the mass of that substance, you could then figure out the molar mass of the substance in each bag. So you can see there's 4 bags, 4 substances. You will need to use your qualitative observations. So what does it look like to you? And then you could fill in the data table to assist you. And then you have 4 questions that answer, like bag A most likely contains 1 mole of which of these 4 substances, bag B, bag C, and bag D. That section seems pretty straightforward. I'm going to scroll back up to the top and collapse part 1. Part 2. In part 2, you are told what the substance is. And so with each substance, again, you are given the mass of the bag, and the total mass is given on the scale. And you are to calculate how many atoms of that element are in the bag. So here we have copper, and you need to figure out what the mass of the copper inside the bag is. And once you know the mass of the copper, calculate the amount of atoms of copper using the molar mass and the amount of atoms in a mole. So again, if I scroll down through all 4 examples, there's a data table to assist you to record the mass of the bag and the element and the mass of just the bag. So what is the mass of the copper, the mass of the carbon, the mass of tin, and the mass of zinc? Once you know the mass of each element, you can then calculate. Make sure you choose the correct option. So bag A contains how many atoms of copper, B contains how many atoms of carbon, and so on. Do those calculations correctly and choose the right answer to complete part 2. And then in part 3 is a little bit more challenging here, and it tells you up front that there are 5 different substances: sodium chloride, potassium sulfate, sodium carbonate, magnesium carbonate, and calcium acetate. And they all look pretty similar. They're all white ionic compounds. So what you need to do is use the data provided to calculate the molar mass of the substance, and then compare that molar mass to the actual molar mass of all 5 of these substances. So here's one example of a problem where you may be given the mass of the bag, and that white substance, and the amount of formula units of the substance. So in the example, to do the calculation, you would figure out the mass of the substance by subtracting out the mass of the bag. You would then calculate the moles of the substance using Avogadro's number to get the moles. And if you take the mass and divide by the molar mass, by the moles, you can get the molar mass of 26.2 grams per mole. And if one of the options was lithium fluoride, then you would compare 26.2 to the molar mass of lithium fluoride, which is 25.9, which is pretty close. Therefore, the molar mass of the substance is closest to lithium fluoride. Therefore, the substance on the balance is lithium fluoride. So there's a few different ways you can approach this problem, so I'm going to let you figure that out. But there are 5 substances, 2 and 3, 4, and 5. And your task is to then say bag 1 most likely contains which of the following 5 substances, bag 2, 3, 4, and 5. When you do that, you are done with the lab. Let your instructor know if you have any questions. But use what you know about moles in each one of these 3 parts to complete the lab.